What's up? What's up? Welcome into the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. I'm Tommy Sladek. We have Samantha Croston. We have Rachel Culver over there on the producer mic. A reminder, you can find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to listen. You can also find every episode on our Orange Zone YouTube page. We invite you to like, comment, subscribe. That helps us, and we are pushing to get to 1,000 right now. That's the new milestone.
That has been the milestone. I feel like ever since we started this channel, that's what I've had my eyes on, because there's monetization, a whole bunch of other exciting things that can happen once you hit that point. But most importantly, it means that 1,000 people are caring and invested in the work that we're putting out. So thank you to everybody who has been a part of that initial, what are we at this point?
We're in the 700s.
So
we got a crew. The Orange Zone listeners, the followers, we got a bunch of you guys, and we appreciate you being around. And we're only going to continue to grow. And the story today is about this Syracuse women's basketball team. The men are in the midst of the ACC Tournament as you're watching this, so we're going to be looking to bring them in here later in the week, Lawrence Moe and all that. Did my voice just drop an octave?
Oh my goodness.
You've been having
I don't know what is going on,
week.
But I feel like
it was me last week. It's you this week. I don't know.
What's in the water?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the problem is. You sound okay. You're back again.
Yeah,
though.
we're back.
We're okay.
That was just a demon that poked his head in. But anyway, the Syracuse women, they're chilling for the week. Selection Sunday is coming up, and we do know that they are going to be dancing. They are in March Madness, but that is not without saying that they ended this regular season and conference tournament on a bit of a disappointing note, losing 3 of their final 4. And the exit in the ACC, it had an all-time quote from FLJ. All-time quote from Felicia Legechak, who we know puts it all out there and gives you the honest take. Rachel, I'm going to let you read it because you wrote it down.
I can't wait. I don't know if I can even do it justice. Okay. I'm not going to give us an excuse. We just pissed down our leg, and we can't have that happen anymore. We don't have no more time, because now the next game we don't have success in, we go home.
Piss down the leg.
I mean, it's as simple as that. I have to say, I like the fact that FLJ always just gives you her raw honesty. You can see in the happiest moments how excited she is, but she's going to let you know when things didn't go according to plan. And granted, I definitely wish that this would not have happened. I think that it would have been better if Syracuse could have secured the 4 seed. They could have been playing in Syracuse, etc. That being said, if you had to have a game where things were going to go awry or you weren't going to be playing at full strength, you'd rather it be this game than the next game. Now it really is, okay, win or go home. And I think that having a situation like this where you lose that game by a lot, and really it didn't feel like Syracuse ever had a chance to win it, now that's really a wake-up call heading into the most important game of the season.
And the final score was 78-65, which doesn't tell the full story. They were down, and they were down bad for most of that game. So Syracuse came in as a 3 seed in the conference tournament in Greensboro last week. Florida State was the 6 seed. The Orange beat them in the regular season, but they were a team that was ranked 15th at the time. SU was unranked. It was one of the 4 AP top 15 teams that they beat in this season. So they came in fired up. And at that point, you have to think, kind of the mindset of the players is, we're in no matter what. We're here just to help ourselves out. But end of the day, they didn't get it done. And on today's episode, we're going to be getting into where we see them in this tournament. Again, Selection Sunday happening here at the end of the week. And why not getting the top 4 matters. Where could they land? Where could we see them if they make it far? We're getting into all that. We also put out a prompt for the listeners, for the watchers, to bring them in, which we're trying to do more. And that is a question that went out today, which was, drum roll please, thank you, SU fans, before we record this week's episode of the Orange Zone, we want your input. What are 3 words you would use to describe this SU women's team? And I added to that, I just kind of say, if you just want to give me a word, that's fine too. It's simple, it's great. And Rachel, you got the most responses. Walk me through what you got.
Yeah, so from all things SU, they wrote passion, team, community. Have we ever felt this connected to a women's team before? At best, it's been a little bit.
I like that one a lot.
I like that one a lot.
That is a good one. Keep it going.
All right. From our very own boss, Sean Carroll, he wrote Daisha friggin' fair, which is like kind of like ignoring the team aspect of it all, but I'll accept it. And then my mother replied to us.
Woo.
Shout out Terry. We love Terry.
Love Terry.
She is a big SU women's fan. And she wrote focused, determined, heart.
Love
Heart.
that. With the heart emoji.
With the heart emoji.
And then we also have Syracuse Waterboy sliding in there. And he went relentless, determined dogs. AWGS. Which I think, yeah, hits it on the head. And here we got some more. We have, and this is, we wanted the honest opinions of everything. Orange Chuck, my guy, wrote family. And then we have Mr. Dodger, 1966, wrote frustrating. Do I think frustrating is the story for this team and the identity of who they are the whole season? Absolutely not. They've been ranked. They're going to the dance. But I understand the fan perspective of being frustrated with how things ended. I think everyone was frustrated with how things finished out in the ACC tournament. It's something to take into account because that type of energy isn't going to give this team any chance of making a run. Because, again, they're not going to be a top 4 seed here. They're going to be a 5. And as we've seen it year after year, anyone can go down at any single point.
And you know what? You said we were going to explain that. I think we should. Let's let that rip on what it would have been if they were a 4 seed and what we could have seen versus what it's going to be now.
Sure. So the top 4 seeds in each region get to host the first 2 round games, which is very, very cool. And so if you look at a bracket right now, there are, if ESPN's a good example, they have a good format where there are cities above each group of 4 teams. So the perfect example is Syracuse is a projected 5 seed right now. We'll just say it. They're projected to play Florida Gulf Coast and Charlie Cream's bracketology right now. So that's the 5 and 12. And then right there with them is 4 seed Indiana against 13 seed Toledo. Because Indiana got one of those 4, these 2 games are being played in Bloomington, Indiana. It's a home court game for Indiana. So both of those games happen, and the second round game will also happen there. But after that, as we get into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, a little bit different from the men's side is you have Albany is the whole regional for one side. Portland is the other. So very much 2 opposite sides of the country, and we happen to have one right in our own backyard comparatively to everyone else. So if Syracuse is able to make it through what will be 2 away games and gets back here, it's going to be a lot of orange in the Capital Region, folks. A lot of orange.
It is going to be a lot of fun. But that is something that I thought about a lot because especially in these games where everything matters even more so, from the preparation to what you're eating to how you're sleeping, I think that everything matters in these games where it is win or go home. I do believe that it would have made a difference being able to have games being played here in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. That is a big advantage, and not just because it's the home court advantage and there are fans, but because of the travel that's involved and because of the other factors that you have to take into account. So I do think that that was important, but that's an opportunity that was lost, and now they have to move on. They have to try and grab those 2 wins, and then hopefully, like you said, we see them in Albany.
Big time. And there's also players that we're going to be looking to see, are they going to be able to make it back? And we sure hope so, because SU admittedly was not at full strength against FSU. Does it excuse the way they play? No. Isabel Verge out with an illness. Hopefully she's back. And then you also had Kyra Wood, the forward, left the game in the second half. Good old elbow to the eye. So not fun. Hoping that both of them are feeling better. But regardless, as Rachel wrote down here, overall improvement from last year is easy to see. Syracuse finished with 5 more regular season wins, 4 more ACC wins, 4 AP top 25 wins over opponents, and the program's first ACC Coach of the Year were the season. On either side, total regular season attendance of 47,555, an average of 2,972 per game was a program high. I'm saying it right now, that number should only be even higher. Felicia Jack got into it last week in our media availability. She's like, we're making the right steps. She goes, I'm going to be working hard this offseason campaigning to get more fans in there. I think it was Virginia Tech guys had a sellout of 11,000 last week. Mm-hmm. These days can happen. We have the space to break records. We have the space. You're in the dome. And so it's a matter of time. And I'm happy to see this increase. I just think and know that it can be even higher, make it an even better environment.
And it's funny because when it says an average of 2,972 per game, it felt like more than that. I don't know if that's just the camera.
Because the people that were there brought it all.
Yeah.
Shout out y'all guys.
They really did. And I'm also just going to give a hot take. I'm sure there will be some people who don't agree with me, and I welcome that.
Launch it.
But honestly, I sometimes do wish that for basketball, they just had a separate venue. I know. The Dome is so storied and all that, but it feels weird to me sometimes to be playing basketball in a football stadium when so much of it is like empty. Like I feel like it could feel more full and it could give you more of that court experience and environment if it had more of a traditional feel. So that was just something on my mind recently. I know it's not going to change anything, but I've just been looking at some of the other games that are played across different venues and arenas and whatnot, and I'm seeing that it looks a lot fuller and feels a lot louder.
I think a lot of SU fans can agree with us in that when you get used to being inside the Dome, right, for those games, and then you find yourself at an away game. Even a great example is just going down to, I'll never forget it, I'd been going to however many SU games in a row, not traveling or going on to any other games. They played Villanova, the men's team did, at Madison Square Garden a few years ago. And I remember walking in being like, I feel like a giant in a miniature arena. Because it felt so small. And you're right. I don't think anything changes. I do think there are times when 20,000 feels like nothing.
Yeah.
And in reality, that would be chaos at any other spot. But it is what it is. So the more we can get in there, the more to give it that feel, the better.
Absolutely. Agree with you 100%.
As for this team, do you guys agree with a 5 seed? Or do you think there could be some shift in movement from some of the projections we're seeing right now? Because I do. I do think there's a possibility that this team is a 6.
I'll let Rachel start.
Yeah, I do think that there's potential for this team to be a 6, which, if does happen, could lead to some interesting storylines. I think no matter what happens, we'll find those storylines as they develop naturally. But, UConn's popping out as a team that could potentially be someone we face down the road in this tournament if we do land that 6 seed. Yeah. So that's one that pops out to me. Obviously, that doesn't determine whether or not the 6 seed will actually happen. But it's March, and you never know, and that's the best part about it.
My natural thought, any given year of the last few years with women's college basketball is the further you can stay away from the 1 seed, the better. Mm-hmm. And granted, none of that matters if you're not winning your games to play them. But if you're in that 4 or 5, you're facing the big dog come the Sweet 16. If you're the 6, you run into the risk of playing a team like UConn that has a chance to really let it rip this year. But at the same time, and then you're playing a 2 seed, but it's one of those where it's one game at a time, but they're just the high seeds are scary. They're just scary teams.
No, I have to say I actually agree with you. Either the high seeds are scary, but it's also scary being right towards the bottom. Like, it almost does feel like, in a way, being in the middle of the pack is actually kind of nice, almost like the best place you could be situated, unless, of course, you really are one of the best teams then.
Could kind of be
Let's
your
just
path.
let it rip.
I mean, we've seen it with the Syracuse men just a few years ago. Like, the 11th seed is a good spot to be. That is a very good spot. And Rachel, I don't know if you agree with me, where you're taking on the 6 and then taking on the 3. I think that's like one of the best in terms of the underdog story to get to the Sweet 16.
One of the only, especially in the men's side, the biggest downfall with that is the play-in game, right? Like, you have one more task that you have to, and that's not every 11 seed. I think it's 2 in the field. But if you are breaking onto that bubble, there's one more task that you got to get through to get even with the rest of the field. So I agree with you. It kind of plays itself out for a nice path most of the time. Again, it's all about matchups. It's about how you're going to match up with each of the teams that you see. So the number only means so much when it comes to like we saw against Clemson. Like, that men's team was not well matched against Clemson. So it's how the cookie crumbles, How the cookie crumbles.
By the way, I know this would be a different episode, but if Colgate wins the Patriot League championship, I'm very interested to see where they're seated. Because they have felt so close to that first March Madness win, but they just don't seem to get it in recent years,
No, and it's a bummer because what they need is a really strong non-conference schedule, because more so they've had undefeated records in the Patriot League and they still end up at the 15. What they really need is to try to jump and get that 14 spot, but they need to be dogs. And this offseason, they have 9 losses. So it's not going to be this year. They're going to be a 15 again. And their win is coming. As long as Matt, with Matt Langle there, their win is coming. But again,
have they ever won an NCAA tournament game? Does anyone know that ever in their history?
Good question.
I can look into that.
All right, yeah, look into that. We'll circle back around if we find
Maybe
out before
once
the
in
rest
the
of the
90s.
episode. But I'm curious.
Maybe once in the 90s, but I mean, this streak is the best that it's ever been.
Yeah, it's
This is the
special.
dynasty time. But anyway, so they could drop to a 6. We'll find out for sure. In other news, before we wrap things up and get some final thoughts on this team and kind of the MVPs and the people we want to see stand out, former Syracuse women's basketball player Camila Cardoso, if anyone remembers her, big center, suspended after her ejection for a fight in the SEC Tournament championship game Sunday against LSU. And that was wild because she kind of came in with the late shove. There's a little pushing and shoving, and she went boom, just rocked one of the Tiger girls. And so they are suspended for one game?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be just the first March Madness game?
Correct.
Okay.
Still.
And that's is that the start? Who is suspended from those?
I believe that there are 4 South Carolina players, if I remember correctly.
Her and the people that came off the bench, or is it? Or those
Well, it
people
was
just ejected?
Well, there was a LSU brother that came out of the stands.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
got escorted out of the arena in handcuffs.
Did he get arrested? Just
I
detained?
believe so.
Yeah.
Yep, I see you have it here. Johnson's brother, who was sitting in the stands behind the scorer's table, and players from both benches jumped into the fray as coaches, police, and referees attempted to separate the two teams. It really was wild, even in the aftermath.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear what both head coaches said and how they responded. And I have to say, I thought that Dawn Staley had a better post-game reaction to it, took a little bit more accountability. I felt like I really admired the way that she handle that situation, because it is hard to kind of manage how you're gonna figure that out and what exactly you're gonna say, not only to your team but also to the media in an instance like that.
It was kind of she threaded the needle, right? She threaded the needle of taking accountability, taking responsibility, but at the same time, she mentioned, she's like, these are crazy emotional times. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have these moments, and it's, I think, somewhat of a bigger deal because it's happening on the women's side of the game. The men's side, it's happened for years. End of the day, it's competitive. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of energy. Do you want violence? Do you want people trying to jump out of the stands? No, never good.
Right.
And you got to put a stand down. But end of the day, basketball's basketball.
And it did. Listen, it gained a lot of traction, that's for certain.
Yeah. Looks like it was just Cardozo that was suspended for that first round of the NCAA tournament,
okay.
but it was the benches that cleared. It was like suspended for the rest of the game, obviously.
Got
And
it.
So we
Okay.
didn't let
That
people
makes
back
sense.
in.
Yeah, she kind of came in with the tough shot there, for sure. Absolutely.
She definitely had the hardest push.
Yeah.
But I feel like people were debating on Twitter if anyone from LSU should have been suspended as well.
For that initial jab, maybe.
I know Kim Mulkey was vocal about, like, if you're gonna push someone, at least make it like Angel Reese, like one of the big girls.
Right. It was like her like post game reaction is just so different. Like I have to say, like that coach just cracks me up because
Yep.
I feel like she just says so many like unhinged things.
Well, she's
like she is unhinged. You never ever know what is going to come
Yeah.
out of that woman's mouth.
I think you heard. I just
Or
heard
what she's
someone
gonna
say
wear.
the other day, that it's
too.
like no matter what she says in a post-game press conference, there could always be an article written about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
she's just a headliner. It's who she is. Before we get out of here, let's talk about this team, and obviously I think we'll be able to have another episode once we find out their matchup and everything. But as we look ahead to this tournament, what do you think is the recipe for them to go on a run? And to go on a run, let's start small. Let's just say this team makes it to the Sweet 16.
Which would certainly be a run. I mean, first of all, I think that they really need to have everybody back at full strength, which I think they should. But I even think back to weeks ago when Vera Zhao was out and you said that she was going to make such a big impact, and she really does. You could really feel the impact of her not being on the court. So hoping that she's healed up. So I think everybody has to be healthy. I think they have to be prepared for and be able to just control the controllables and then ignore everything that is not in their control, because you can't control where exactly you're going to end up or how far you have to travel. But you can, and I think I can envision this being what FLJ tells people is, again, to just control the things that you can control. And outside of that, just I think being ready for whichever opponent does come at them, because there is going to be, that to me is the most interesting part about March Madness, is you're going up against teams who you have sometimes never played before or have very, very rarely played against. So I think that they have to figure out, watch a lot of film and figure out exactly how they're going to match up and guard against some of these teams who they haven't faced this season.
How about you, Rach?
Kind of going back to what we had asked people on Twitter today, one of the words that always has come to mind for me for this team is trust. I think they have so much trust in the people that they are around, in each other. I think that applies off the court, and almost more importantly than when it does on the court. FLJ obviously has so much reliance on Deasia, and has bought into Deasia as kind of a figurehead of what she wants this program to grow into. And you're going to have to see Deasia be Deasia. You're going to have every team that they play against try and shut her down, and it's all going to be about how this team all works together to give her the best opportunities. And like we said, that guard play in March Madness is one of the most important factors. So I think Deasia is going to be key.
Snaps up to that.
Snaps.
That's a big part of mine. End of the day, you have someone that's top 5 all-time scoring, first team all-conference, runner-up for what is the most competitive, I think, one of the best conferences in college basketball, which is the ACC on the women's side. Your star needs to be a star. Gotta let her flourish. But in order for that to happen, you have to have other people on that court that show that they can do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's going to be Alyssa Latham. It's going to be Georgia Woolley. We've seen Georgia, I think, has been playing largely very well in this back half of this season, and just locking in, draining threes, breaking it to the lane. And then Alyssa Latham at this point is like, I had to pull it up just to see, but she's at the point where she's averaging 8.7 points and then 7.1 rebounds. You need someone with those type of numbers. Kyra Wood, 6.7 rebounds per game. Deasia Fair and Georgia Woolley actually low-key almost 5 rebounds per game. And then Elena Rice, 10 points, 5 boards per game. It may seem obvious, but you have to have every piece to step up. But there is a cornerstone to this team. It's Deasia Fair. It's the star power. It's the guard. She has to get going if they want any shot of letting this thing rip. And that takes everybody.
It takes everyone. Also, wanted to make sure we shouted this out before we leave, that on Monday, Lemoyne College women's basketball coach Mary Grimes was named Northeast Conference Coach of the Year, and they also just won their first Division I conference tournament matchup.
Yeah, bingo. They beat
Stonehill,
beat Stonehill 79-59. Latoya Baker went off, also a Bishop Kearney grad, Rochester, Deasia Fair. So we'll be keeping a close eye on them. Obviously, Lemoyne can't make the tournament, and even if they make it, just because of stupid rules that we could have a whole podcast on, which I think we already have. But at this point, it's exciting, it's fun. Colgate also won last night. It's exciting that we're in this situation, and people are listening all over the country. We have people from other countries that we've had Kazakhstan listeners. Shout out our people in Kazakhstan. But for Central New York, where we're based, Syracuse is obviously the big name. It's the brand. But we're going to be entering a world where on any given year, there's 8 total teams between Syracuse, Lemoyne, Cornell, and Colgate, all within our small region here of Central New York that could be going dancing. And that's just fun.
It's amazing.
It's a basketball area, man. It's a basketball area.
It is. And it's so exciting. And all of that action, I'm not sure if we said this or not yet, but the full bracket will be revealed on ESPN on the women's side for the women's selection show on March 17th at 8 p.m. So tune in.
Oh, yeah.
Men's, same day.
Yeah.
A little bit earlier in the day, we think that show is.
Yep. Yeah.
Lock in and do your fantasy brackets. Get involved. I will be doing fantasy brackets. Anybody else?
Brackets.
We might
not fantasy brackets. Sorry,
just the brackets.
Just the brackets.
Yeah,
brackets.
We might have to.
She will do fantasy.
Oh yeah, I can take the head on that. I'll print out some brackets. I'll be the little scorekeeper.
We'll
make it a whole
thing. We can actually go over that.
Yeah,
later
we'll do that.
Later this month, we're going to be doing some sort of Rachel bracket.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that'll be good. Cool. We're out of here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're going to be boosting our content back up on there. Exciting time. Lacrosse season's here. We're going to have spring football coming up. Maybe some guests coming on. Maybe some assistant coaches. It's a good time for the Orange Zone. Good time for the Orange Zone. Stay with us. Tommy Sladek, Samantha Croston, Rachel Culver. We're out of here. Peace.